Thank you for joining us. We'll get started here shortly. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, sponsored by IFTA Allied member TEC Services. Staffing challenges and the true cost of turnover. Why outsourcing your sanitation program might be more cost-effective than you think. My name is Matthew Sharing, and I lead business development here at IFTA. I'm happy to serve as the facilitator for today's webinar. Before we get started, there are some quick housekeeping notes. All attendees are muted. If you have questions, please enter them into the questions box on your screen. We will hold all questions until the end, but feel free to type in your questions at any time. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on the IFTA website in the coming days. And now I would like to introduce today's presenter. Joining us is Jay Hutchinson, Senior Vice President of Partnerships Development at TEC Services, which is a leading third-party sanitation provider specializing in the food distribution and food retail sectors. With over 20 years of experience in the business development, sales, operations, and both project and account management, Jay's unparalleled expertise has been foundational in shaping the trajectory of the company. His illustrious career encompasses executive roles and industry stalwarts such as Diversey and Walgreens, with a prime focus on cleaning and sanitation programs. This deep-rooted commitment to excellence in sanitation standards has set Jay apart as a leader in the field. Beyond his corporate endeavors, Jay's flair for innovation shines through as he is a multiple patent holder, contributing to advancement in the industry. At TEC Services, Jay's vast experience and innovative approach are instrumental in driving growth, fostering invaluable collaborations, and fortifying partnerships in an ever-evolving business environment. With that, I'll hand it over to Jay for today's presentation.
All right, thank you very much, Matt. I appreciate the kind words and the information shared about my background. I look forward to talking with everybody today, and thank you again for everybody attending. Again, we're going to go through a presentation here that talks a little bit more about the background of the true cost of turnover. We're going to run through a calculator. It's an online calculator that we've created that helps you better understand some of the challenges that you have and some of the costs that you have when it comes to turnover in the industry. And then we'll open it up to questions and answers as well. So again, looking forward to any of your questions at the end, and hopefully you'll find this very informative. So. All right, so let's just jump right in and understand what the cost of turnover is. So IFTA, as well as the Bureau of Labor, and you may have seen this over the past few years, they've gone out and done some surveys with their members. And so what we did was we pulled some of that information from the IFTA surveys in a better opportunity for you to see what's happening in the industry. So you may or may not have seen this, but we thought it would be great to reshare it again today. So those respondents who were surveyed during this period of time felt that 43% was their annual warehouse turnover rate. Now that might be higher for you, it might be a little bit lower for you, but on average, that's about where everybody was at from a turnover rate. 68% of those individuals felt that they had a significant difficulty in recruiting. And as you can imagine, nearly 70% of those folks having difficulty, which means they're spending a lot of time trying to recruit people and to work into their DCs and warehouses. And then on top of that, 97% had roles open longer than a year ago. Now, I live in Wisconsin, and I live just north of the Illinois border. And one of the things that's happening around this particular area is we're seeing a significant growth in the warehouse industry around this area. And what's happening is we're that pool of individuals who they're trying to pull from is the same one that all the other distribution centers and warehouses in the area are pulling from as well. So we're seeing a significant impact in this area of the country when it comes to hiring for the warehouse industry. All right, so let's put some numbers behind this. So if we take 43% of that annual warehouse turnover rate, and we apply that to, say, a 100 associate DC team, $8,500 is pretty much that minimum cost when it comes to replacing a worker. So in the end of the year, if it's a 100 associate team, you're going to see a cost of around $365,000 a year just to replace those average workers that you would have in your facility. Now, let's imagine you have 10 DCs. Now we're looking at nearly $4 million in that cost to just replace workers within your facilities. So again, what are those huge impacts when it comes to turnover? First of all, the biggest thing is that loss of productivity. Imagine obviously what we're trying to do is deliver products to your customers. If you don't have enough selectors to be able to do that, or lumpers or forklift drivers, you're running a situation where you're going to have a loss of productivity. You're going to have orders that are coming in, they're not going to go out, or you're going to have a situation where you're spending a lot more when it comes to your labor costs because you're going to be spending more in overtime and things like that. So you end up with that lost productivity. And then potentially you have missed orders. So obviously that isn't what anybody wants. And when we put pressure on our teams and we're asking them to do more, we end up with an erosion of morale over time. And then if you get all three of those happening, then pretty much what ends up happening is you end up with unhappy customers. And then you have that cycle again where you're constantly hiring and training and hiring and training and hiring and training. All ends up with missed opportunities within your DCs. So let's talk a little bit more about the pros and cons of insourcing versus outsourcing. So one of the things is management. You've got a management team who's responsible for going out and ensuring that the products that your customers are ordering from you are heading out the door. And if they're spending a lot of time with training your sanitation staff or any of the other staff for that matter, they're not focusing on the revenue generating activities that they need to in your facilities. The other part of it is obviously costs. You've got the variable hard and soft costs of recruiting, hiring, onboarding and training, the pre-employment screenings that we all need to do, benefits, and then things like sign-on bonuses. I had indicated earlier in the area where I live, we're seeing a significant amount of sign-on bonuses. And people end up working for, say, 90 days, they get that bonus. Sometimes they wait till they get the bonus and then they leave and they go to the next location. If all the DCs in the area are doing that, then you can see how that would be a situation where a lot of people are moving around. By outsourcing all those costs, it just becomes a single predictable cost. And the way we would do that is you simply get a monthly bill or a weekly bill, depending on how the invoices are sent. And then you know what your costs are going to be on a regular basis. Overhead, obviously you've got to recruit, train, and retain these employees, while maintaining morale. By outsourcing, you've got an immediate access to skilled and dependable cleaning team, and you don't need to worry about recruiting and training or any of those retention costs because we take on that responsibility. Staffing, obviously we know a lot of people are struggling to staff these days. And our goal is to make sure that you're 100% fully staffed all the time. Time is a huge investment. I've talked to a customer the other day, and they literally are having weekly onboarding events at their location because that's the level of turnover they're having at their locations. So obviously, a huge investment in time is taken in regards to that. If you look at something like outsourcing sanitation, it's obviously a much more minimal investment in regards to that. But then you can focus on the team members in hiring the selectors, the put away people, the forklift drivers who are really going to help you drive revenue within your facility. Then the quality of service. If you've got a lot of turnover, obviously you're going to have consistent challenges, varying degrees of sanitation compliance within your buildings because you're constantly training those folks. And we also find, the other thing I wanted to share is, we also find that the sanitation role tends to be that entry-level role within the facility. And because of that, people are then looking for new opportunities once they are hired on as sanitation Maybe they see a job opening for a selector that pays more an hour or has more overtime opportunities. They then move into that role, and then what ends up happening is now you've got turnover again on that sanitation team, which means you're consistently having to rehire for that particular staff. And this, by outsourcing that, allows you to have a consistent sanitation staff there 100% of the time. Then the last thing, but not least, is obviously audits. As you can imagine, if you're short-staffed on your sanitation team, as your audits get close, whether it's a safety audit, SQF, VRC, internal audit, whatever that may be, there may be a bit of a scramble to get ready for that and ensure that you're ready. By having an outsourced staff, we can guarantee that you're going to be ready for that part of your audit. All right, so just a review of some of those hidden costs. Again, HR, recruiting, obviously, 401k match, insurance and benefits, along with your long-term and short-term disability, obviously taxes, which we all know is getting to be that time of year, the constant training that you're going to have with hiring new team members, and then the supervision of obviously managing. You're going to be spending more time supervising new employees and helping them with their training. When you're short-staffed, you're obviously seeing a level of overtime that's going to be increased. You need to schedule for vacations and holidays and things like that as well. And then last and not least, sign-on bonuses, which are things that we're starting to see quite a bit in the industry. And I look forward to the questions and answers at the end to see if that's something that you're seeing as well in your area. Okay, so let's take a look at the outsourcing, insourcing versus outsourcing calculator that we've created. Now, what we've done here is we've taken an online program that we've created, which gives an opportunity for people to be able to put in their information. And what I'd like to do is, if we have an opportunity to meet one-on-one at a later time, is to sit down with you and actually go through this calculator so you can actually see and put your numbers in so we can see where we come out at and see if we can bring value to you or not, or help you better understand what your two costs are when it comes to insourcing versus outsourcing. So what I've got here is our calculator here. So I'm going to go through this and just use some hypothetical situations so that you can kind of see the process that we go through in regards to this. So I'm basically just going to call this distribution company ABC Distribution Company. Okay. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go through our labor costs. So the first thing we need to do is put in our costs or inputs. What is your hourly pay? So maybe average around the industry might be $16.75 an hour. Your DC could be 7 days a week. So we'll put in 7 days a week. And then those individuals are working a 40-hour week. And right now, since they're all full-time, we're just going to say that there's zero when it comes to part-time people. But what's great about this is it allows us to change this depending on whatever you have for your particular scenario. Maybe you're 6 days a week, or maybe your team members are working 48 hours a week or something like that. We can tailor that around so it can really dial in exactly what's happening in your particular situation. So the next thing we look at is what are the shifts that they're working. So in this particular distribution center, they've got, so let's say it's maybe 500,000 square feet. They've got 5 people on first shift, 5 on second, and 5 on third. And so what that means is since they're 7 days a week, there's 15 total positions on a 24-hour period, but it's basically 21 full-time people. So here's their labor costs when it comes to just their situation in this particular distribution center. Now, we've got paid time off, you've got vacation, sick time, personal days. So let's say they get 2 weeks from that standpoint. And since we're in food distribution, we don't get a lot of holidays, but let's say there's 3 that they get off a year. Now, another thing that becomes very critical when it comes to their labor costs is their overtime spend. So let's take a look at this from a yearly standpoint, and let's say it's $50,000 a year. Okay. So when we come down here, we understand the total costs for annually for employees. The net includes with their labor, paid time off, overtime, and holiday pay, and you can see how that number has increased to $804,000. The next step is understanding their employee taxes and benefits costs. So here, let's pick a state, and I'm going to go with Wisconsin, since it's all the way down at the bottom, and of course that's where I live. Folks, I'm guessing it's your 3% is your 401k match. So all of this here is all of the other costs that are included when it comes to an employee, in-sourced employee from them. So you've got all the different costs. You've got your federal employment, Medicare, state employment, their total taxes, annual health care costs if you're providing health care, long-term and short-term disability. You've got FICA and Social Security, workman's comp, as well as your 401k. And so here's your subtotal here on benefits and taxes. All right, so let's understand your recruiting costs. So recruiting costs are, let's say you have a turnover of like 10 people that you've hired for janitorial this year. And you have an internal recruiter. So let's select your internal recruiter. And let's say you fill those 10 roles. All right. So now what you have here are the costs that go along with it. You've got your advertising costs, your drug testing costs, background checks, and any other costs that go along with it. And that breaks down here to another, and you've got the cost of the recruiter as well, which is about 33%. So we're not putting the full cost of the recruiter in because we're just focusing on sanitation employees right now. So we're not putting that whole cost in, just a 33% of that cost. Now what we do is we move over. Obviously, you're going to have someone managing that team, so we'll put in one person for that. And so here is the summary. So $804,000 from a labor cost. You've got taxes and benefits. You've got your recruiting costs. Here's your subtotal for managing it, your supervisory cost. And so a grand total of insourcing sanitation costs, so let's say it's $1.3 million. Again, this is a hypothetical situation, and it would be great to be able to go through one of these programs with you specifically so we can really better understand your numbers. So let's understand what the efficiency is. So as a company that focuses on cleaning, and a company who, and that's all that we do, we feel that our team is going to be more efficient from that standpoint. So we can actually select whether or not we feel what that efficiency would be. So whether that's an average internal team that you have, whether your team or whether you feel your team needs an improvement, or whether you feel they're best in class. So let's go with the first one here. Let's go with average internal team. And what that means here is I think we're going to pull maybe about a 10% efficiency over where you are today. So in the end, let's say we're at, let's just say $30 an hour. Here's a cost savings. So our cost would be $1.79 million to be able to service that particular facility. Remember, this is a 7-day a week, 15 people working on a 24-hour shift. So again, 7 days a week. And here's those total costs from an insourcing standpoint. So there's a chance we could actually be a cost savings for you when it comes to managing the sanitation program, or a 10% savings. So let's go back and let's take a look at whether or not, let's just say they're best in class. That means there's no efficiency gains whatsoever. This is an opportunity for you to see whether we're actually could potentially be rating the same cost that you are today from that standpoint. But what this also does is it allows you to take those responsibilities from the sanitation team and take those off your management plate and allow us to take on those responsibilities. And then be able to give you the reporting, the visibility into what's happening in your facilities with the site manager, and I'll go through that in a little bit. But by being even net neutral when it comes to this program, maybe an opportunity for you to take that off the plate, stop having your managers have to deal with the sanitation side, and let a third-party company come in and take on that responsibility and give us an opportunity to be able to support you from that standpoint. So in the end, when this is all said and done and we have an opportunity to go through this with you, we can email those results out to you so that you can see what they look like, and then take that back and discuss it with your team. All right. So let me go back to the presentation here. So what are the results? So the success that we've had so far with this third-party type of program and coming in and supporting a sanitation program in the DCs, in most situations, we've been able to either reduce or eliminate the management, associated costs when it comes to the warehouse janitorial sanitation workforce. That means we're taking that work off your manager's plates, leaving it with us, let us take care of that, and allow them to focus on those revenue generating responsibilities that they have in their facility. We're either able to reduce and eliminate the cost of benefits, sign-on bonuses, vacations, and 401k, and all those other things. We've been able to improve sanitation through dedicated staffing and through trained staff. Obviously, we've been able to reduce food waste through your deep slot cleaning and timely product recovery. And what do I mean by that? I mean that if we're able to get into the slots and get things with a staff that's on site who's trained to do the work, we're able to get into these locations and collect items that may have fallen, and allows you to either get them boxed up and get those boxes fixed and still allow them to be shipped out because they're still good for sale. Or they may be in a situation where the box is damaged and maybe a bottle or two of something was damaged in there. It allows you to then get that product and donate it while it's still not expired. And this allows you to take, obviously, the benefits of the taxes benefit from that standpoint as well. And then, of course, and I know we see these all over the place, and I'm sure you see this as well, spills that happen during selection process. And then we get in a situation where, if the staff is short, they're not there to be able to, you don't have sanitation team on staff, then you may be in a situation where you're driving through these particular spills and things like that. By having a staff on there ready to go, we can get those slip fall injuries reduced because we're able to do timely spill management and get everything cleaned up the way it should be in a timely manner. And then last but not least, the KPIs. We use a number of different programs to help us manage our teams in the facilities. One of the things is making sure that our KPIs match up with your KPIs. We want to make sure that we're providing you the services that you're looking for and give you visibility and to be able to see what's happening in your facility. So that's it for what I have to present today. What I'd like to do is open it up for any questions or any comments or anything like that you might have.
Jay, that was awesome. Thank you for all that great information, and that calculator is an incredible tool. So thank you for sharing your insights.
Yeah.
Again, if you have any questions, please type them into the question box in the screen here. But we'll get started with this first question here. Is what are the key factors that a food distribution company should consider when deciding between in-house and outsourced sanitation programs?
Yeah, great question. So from that standpoint, if you're finding yourselves in a situation where you have high turnover, especially when it comes to the sanitation side of it, like we talked about in the presentation, that may be a situation where you want to look at outsourcing. You may already be outsourcing, say, your lumping program within your facility. And by reducing the number of people that you need to recruit and hire and allowing your teams to focus on the selectors who are actually revenue generating team members or forklift drivers or inventory control, whatever that may be, by eliminating that level of individual from a sanitation standpoint from that recruiting staff, it allows your recruiting staff to focus on people that are going to help drive your business forward. Our job is to make sure that we have a staff ready to go who's trained in your facility and providing you the sanitation services that you're looking for. Let's allow us to take that off your plate and let you focus on those other items that are more important.
Great, thank you for covering that. That's awesome. Next question here. Are there any technological advancements or innovative practices in outsourced sanitation that might not be typically available with in-house teams?
Sure. So one of the things we utilize is we have a QA report program that we use. So every one of the locations that we work with, we would have a site manager there who would be managing our team. They would be a team member of yours. They would be there working with your staff on a regular basis. But one of the things they use and one of the things we've created is an app that allows our team members to go through the facility and answer questions that you helped us create. So you're going to want to know different things like, are these areas clean? When were the last time they were cleaned? Areas that are a concern, anything like that. That list of questions then goes into a survey. Our team then utilizes an app. They go through and walk through the facility. They're going to answer these questions, and they're going to take pictures of these areas as well. And when it's all said and done, they're going to give you an opportunity, or someone from your team an opportunity, to come and survey how we're doing. So there's, and you help us, create the questions. And so it might be 6 or 8 questions. You just want to see how we're doing. That gives a survey, and then your team signs off on it, whoever you designate to have them do that. When that's done, that survey is completed, a PDF is created, and then that's emailed out to the team. So that can go to the general manager, your anybody who's in operations. It might be FSQA or food safety people. Anybody who wants to see that. That then comes to us as well. We utilize that to make sure that we're capturing all the information we need to ensure we're meeting KPIs. And when that email goes out, it also covers things like how many spills took place in the facility. And we'll also put in there how many allergen spills or glass spills. What's great about that is it allows you to see if you're seeing an increase or a decrease in spills within your facility, which obviously drives to the bottom line. But then it makes sure that we're tracking all of those spills and making sure that the proper paperwork is being filled out, especially if you're following a food safety scheme like SQF or BRC. So hopefully that answers that question. Let me add. We also then at the end of the week send out a weekly summary, which can go to your team, as well as a monthly summary as well. And that could go all the way up to your corporate team who might be wanting to see what's happening. What's great about this is it gives visibility into what's happening in your facility. When someone who may not be able to get in there or see what's happening, they can look at the pictures and they can actually see how the facility is performing. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, that data sounds like very helpful. So thank you. Let's see, next question here. Besides immediate cost savings, what are the long-term strategic benefits of outsourcing sanitation for businesses in the food sector?
Yeah, I think, one of the things we talked about earlier is making sure that you have the staff there to do the work. Long-term means that you're always going to be audit ready. Our goal is to make sure that whenever anybody comes in, because, we do know when unannounced visits are coming, that gives usually a window of a couple of months. But you don't want to be scrambling if you and find out that they're coming in the next day and you're not ready for it. By having a dedicated staff that's an outsourced staff, third-party staff, who's responsible for the maintaining the cleaning, you don't have a situation where you may be pulling in an in-house situation where you're pulling sanitation people to move over to selection. And we see that sometimes where, we may be getting into the holidays or where we may have a large orders coming in, and we're going to take from the sanitation team, move them over to selection so that we can get those items out. Well, what happens then is, as we all know, you're going to find a situation where you don't have enough sanitation people to keep up with it because the volume is increased in the warehouse. Now we don't have enough people to take care of the sanitation. That's where our team obviously wouldn't be pulled from that to be able to do that, and you wouldn't have to worry about that from that standpoint. And it ensures that we've got staff there to do the sanitation work that needs to be done to ensure that you have the facility looking the way that you need to.
All right, great, thank you. Do you work with clients in Canada?
At this point in time, we don't. That doesn't mean that we couldn't, but at this point in time, we do not have any customers that are located in Canada at this time.
Okay. Let's see here. Next question. For companies considering the shift from in-house to outsourced sanitation, what does the transition process typically involve, and how do you ensure that it's smooth?
Okay. Yeah, I think the first thing we do is we understand what's the scope of work. What we have to do is make sure that we understand what our responsibilities are going to be, as well as what the responsibilities of the staff that may be remaining, or it may be the responsibilities of operations and things like that. So the first thing is going through that scope of work and making sure that is completely detailed out, going through it line by line and making sure we know who's responsible for what. Then it's communication, I think, is the next biggest thing. Is we need to make sure that the teams understand what's happening and why we're moving in this direction. So you may have, let's go back to my hypothetical situation. You've got, let's say you normally have 15 people. Maybe you have 8 people on your staff because you're short-staffed in the sanitation. maybe looking at whether or not some of those people could move into a selector role, or maybe some of those people can move into a forklift or inventory control or something like that, or whether or not they would move over and work with us from that standpoint. So it's making sure that the staff that's going to be affected by what's happening has an opportunity to understand what that's going to look like. And in most situations, we find they're able to take that staff and move them into different roles. And we don't really ever end up in a situation where we're taking on team members. They'll usually move them over from that standpoint. Or they may be in a situation where they're going to stay on and they work in a situation where they're going to be cleaning like maybe the offices and break rooms and things like that. So we modify the scope of work to take out some of the things while they work and continue to do that. And maybe over time they decide to move into another role. And when they do that, then we then take on those areas. So we're more than happy, and I would think any of the companies out there would be more than happy to work with you because we know people are affected by making a change like this. And we want to try to do and make that a change and reduce the challenges when it comes to that as much as possible. So it's really a one-off basis, understanding what's happening in your facilities, but we're more than happy to work with you to understand how we can reduce and minimize the effect of that change happening in your facilities. And then last is making sure that we understand what that start date looks like. And obviously there are a whole lot of meetings that go into it, and I'm sure I don't have time to go into all the different things that go on, but we're going to meet with your operations teams. We're going to meet with your food safety teams. We're going to meet with inventory control. We're going to want to understand what their schedules are. We want to make sure that we're getting into areas in the facility when we can get in. Maybe early in selection, it's really heavy in dairy. We're gonna stay out of that area and we're gonna work in a different area. It's understanding that flow of the pattern through the DCs. So all of that work has to take place ahead of time to ensure we're ready to come in and work in your facility, because the more we know ahead of time at the beginning, the less intrusive we're going to be when we take on. And then last is really the communication of your teams. Someone is probably going to need to reach out to your entire staff and let them know that this change is taking place because it's affecting people. And we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to help with that communication. And usually our site managers will sit in on meetings with your teams and introduce our teams and help everybody understand what's happening when it comes to this type of changeover. So obviously a lot goes into making those changes, but we can actually help you work through that.
Great. Next question here. With PTO, sick time, and attrition, how do you guarantee 100% attendance all of the time with your teams?
Yeah, and that's an important question. One of the things we like to do is we actually will be a little bit overstaffed. So we understand that we're responsible for ensuring, let's say for this Wisconsin location, there's 15 people on staff. We're going to have probably 25 people that are going to, so there's going to be people that are going to rotate in. There are people that are going to need days off. You're looking at a program where it's 7 days a week. So you're going to have people working Sunday through Thursday, maybe Monday through Friday, Tuesday through Saturday. It really all depends on the schedule in the facility. But we're going to be overstaffed when it comes to that so that we can rotate people in and make sure that people get, days off that they need to. People need to go to the dentist. They may need to go to the doctor. We want to make sure that they can still do that. But we also want to make sure that we're meeting our needs as far as providing the number of people we're supposed to or the number of hours that we're responsible for. And so we're going to have an overstaff. We're going to have people that are going to rotate in and out depending on that particular need.
Wonderful. Okay. Next question here. Could you elaborate on how high staff turnover rates in in-house sanitation departments impact operational efficiency and overall cost for food distribution? Additionally, how does outsourcing sanitation help mitigate these turnovers related challenges?
Oh, that's a great question. Did somebody get all that into the question bar there? That's great. So when it comes to high turnover, obviously we talked about this earlier. That sanitation person is usually the first person who gets is that entry level position that comes in, but they're the first person that gets taken from that and moved into another role. So high turnover is usually affected mostly by that sanitation. Those folks are going to move into a different role, and then we're always trying to refill that sanitation role. Our goal is to eliminate that part of it so that you don't have to deal with it, so that you don't have to worry about it. and that you're out there hiring the people that you need to drive the revenue that you have in your facility. So hiring selectors, hiring people who drive your forklifts, your inventory control, your management, that kind of thing. Let your recruiters focus on that and allow us to take that sanitation side of it, because one of the things is, you know, as a professional cleaning company, is we understand what cleaning looks like and what needs to be done from a training standpoint. Allow us to take the lead on that so that your team can focus on getting those products out the door to your customers. Not sure if that answered the question, but hopefully it did.
That was awesome. Thank you. Next question here. For an organization with multiple sites, is there a dashboard reporting on performance against defined KPIs?
Yeah, we can create right now. There's multiple ways that we can provide this data. First of all is through the daily reports, the daily QA reports. Again, that's a survey of our site manager walks through the facility, answers the questions that you help us create, and then we then go and take pictures, and then that's emailed out. The opportunity to have a dashboard, we definitely can work with you on that as well, which would allow you to select a particular location, and you'll be able to see what's happening in that facility. But what we find is sometimes people don't have time to be able to get to the dashboards, and so they want to be able to access the information, so the PDFs are sent out to their teams. And then you help us understand where you want those sent to. So if a QA report needs to go to operations or to general manager, and maybe it's the weekly report that needs to go to your food safety people in corporate, or the regional management level within the organization, it goes there. And then maybe there's the monthly report that goes out that can go to everybody in the organization, and then that way they can see multiple locations. And let's say you got 50 locations across the country, and you're from California all the way up and down the eastern seaboard. You might have regional people underneath each or over these different areas. We can tailor it to go so the locations that they're responsible for, that's the report they get. Or if there's somebody corporate who wants to see the whole thing, they can get that sort of report as well. So we definitely have capabilities for different ways, whether it's dashboard or whether it's the actual reporting, physical documents. They can actually see both if they want.
Awesome, thank you. Well, we kind of see if there's any more questions here. Is there a way for folks to get in touch with you here, Jay?
Yeah, absolutely. So here's a QR code that if you just like any other QR code, you put your camera on it. When you open that up, it'll have all my contact information. You can download that into your phone if you want to give me a call or email. And again, what I'd love to do is, if you're interested in learning more about the calculator and what it means for you, I'd love to schedule a 10-15-minute call. It doesn't take long to go through it. All I ask is you just have your hours, maybe the number of people on each shift, how many shifts, and and if you don't want to share the hour rate, just give me a range, and we can go from there and actually understand what that cost is and actually go through it. Now, we may be in a situation where it doesn't make sense, and that's okay. We won't know until we have that conversation with you to better understand what's happening. But in most situations, we've been able to find that once we've gone through this, we've been able to help them understand more of the costs that they have, and be able to better understand whether or not outsourcing to somebody like us or another company is the right thing to do.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, I think that kind of wraps up our program. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us before we kind of close out?
No, we're excited about our partnership with IFTA, and we're looking forward to the annual event in Kansas City. We'll have a booth there. So if now isn't the right time to get in touch with us, we'll have a booth there, and we'll have this calculator up as well. So there'll be an opportunity for us to walk through it in person if you'd like. So hopefully if we don't talk to you soon, we'll have an opportunity to see you at the next IFTA event.
Appreciate that plug. Thank you. And thank you again, Jay, and to TEC Services for sponsoring this webinar. A lot of great content. I think it'll be very valuable for a lot of our community here. So thanks again. And we look forward to seeing everyone again on our next webinar scheduled for March 14th. So with that, everyone have a wonderful afternoon.
Okay, great. Thank you. Bye now.